The movie opens with Violet, hurt and bleeding on the ground. Her husband, Blake, shows up, kicks her, and points a gun at her. But instead of shooting, he hands her the gun, asking her to kill him. Years later, Violet is doing better and works as a therapist helping abused women. One morning, she gets a text from a man named Henry, asking her out. Just then, a man claiming to be from the electric company arrives to check the meter, and she lets him in. That evening, Violet plays with her son Toby until her sister Jen comes to babysit. Before leaving for her date, Violet tells Jen to put Toby to bed by 8 p.m. and reminds her she'll be watching through CCTV. Dressed up, Violet heads to a fancy restaurant on a high floor. In the elevator, Henry texts that he'll be 10 minutes late and tells her to wait at the bar. She orders a drink from the friendly bartender, Kara, and admits she's nervous since it's her first date. Soon, an old man named Richard mistakes her for his date, Diane. She clears the confusion, and he explains he's waiting for a blind date. They laugh it off, toast to their upcoming dates, when a man named Phil tries flirting with Violet. Kara quickly steps in, saying Violet is here for a date, and warns that Phil is the piano guy who flirts with everyone. At that moment, Richard's real date, Diane, arrives, and they leave together. Violet then texts her sister, when suddenly a strange meme appears on her phone through Digidrop, an app like AirDrop. Looking around, she notices people on their phones, wondering who sent it. Henry finally arrives and compliments Violet on her beauty. They head to their table with a stunning city view. Henry, a photographer, apologizes for bringing his camera bag, saying he can't leave it in the car. He then gives Violet a small hockey puck as a gift for Toby, which touches her. A waiter named Matt takes their drink orders and leaves. Suddenly, Violet gets another Digidrop meme, this time warning her not to ignore it. She shows Henry, and they both scan the room, guessing a group of prom kids are behind it. Soon, another message tells her to check her home security cameras. She doesn't watch as Jen and Toby in the bedroom. But her heart stops when she spots a masked man in the living room, staring into the camera with a gun. Henry asks what's wrong, but Violet gets another message, keep quiet. She excuses herself to the bathroom, tries calling 911, but a new message appears, her phone is cloned, and if she leaves or tries talking to the police, her son dies. In the washroom, she asks a group of girls for help, but another warning tells her not to involve anyone. She borrows eyeliner and writes help on her palm, but the girls don't understand and leave. Frantic, Violet checks the bathroom and finds a hidden tapping device under the sink, shocking her. She returns to the table, where Henry notices her stress. She quickly explains she's just anxious, since she and Toby have never been apart, especially after his father died. Violet suddenly notices a tapping device on the lamp and realizes the dropper is listening. She tells Henry she's scared of heights and suggests changing tables. Henry agrees and asks Matt, the waiter, to arrange it. Soon, Matt returns saying another table is ready, but Violet gets a message. If she switches tables, Toby will die in a minute. Terrified, she quickly changes her mind, saying they came for the view. Though confused, Henry and Matt agree. When Matt returns to take their order, Violet quietly asks the dropper what they want. The reply, take the SD card from Henry's camera. Panicked, she slips off her watch, hides it in her purse, and pretends it's lost. She asks Henry to check with the hostess, and while he's gone, she grabs the camera. Her heart pounds as she finds photos of the mayor with shady people, plus documents proving corruption. She pulls out the SD card just as Henry comes back, saying the hostess hasn't seen her watch. At that moment, the dropper orders her to go to the bathroom. There, a new message tells her to destroy the SD card. Desperate to save Toby, she smashes it and flushes it. She begs the dropper to release the intruder at her house, but they refuse, saying her job isn't done. They then order her to check the towel dispenser. Inside, she finds a vial of liquid. To her shock, she's told to slip it into Henry's drink and kill him, ensuring his painless and quick death. Violet refuses, but the dropper reminds her she can do it because she has killed someone before. Shaken, Violet leaves the washroom, still wondering who the dropper is. At the table, Henry thinks she's not interested and prepares to leave after paying the bill. In desperation, Violet kisses him and asks him to stay, which excites him. Nearby, Diane yells at Richard and storms out. Violet and Henry sit back down, and the dropper urges her to finish the job. Matt arrives to take their order as Phil begins playing the piano. Violet quickly makes a plan. She writes hostages and her address on a $20 bill with lipstick, then asks Matt to give it to Phil as a tip. As Matt passes it over, Violet distracts Henry by asking about his work. He explains he's been the mayor's press photographer for 5 years, but avoids saying if the mayor is honest. Meanwhile, Phil collects the tips and freezes when he reads Violet's message. He tries calling someone, but fear takes over, and he sits back at the piano, nervously sipping his cocktail. Matt then brings their food. Violet starts eating her salad but suddenly receives a text from the dropper that she has messed up. She tries to apologize, but it's too late and Phil collapses after drinking a spiked cocktail. Horrified, Violet checks her home cameras and sees the masked man knock out Jen, then lock Toby in a room. The dropper again orders her to finish the job. Meanwhile, Phil stumbles to the elevator, but the dropper says he won't make it out alive. Panic fills Violet, but she hides it with a smile and suggests to Henry that they get tequila. She rushes to the bar, accidentally dropping her purse. Henry notices her watch. At the bar, Violet orders 2 shots and tries to slip poison into one, but the dropper insists she do it at the table. Back at her seat, Henry hands her the watch, upset that she keeps scanning the restaurant nervously. He urges her to be honest and comforts her, promising that he can help. Suddenly, Violet remembers the night she tried to shoot Blake but couldn't. Little Toby saw it all, crying as Blake turned the gun toward him. Back in the present, Violet confesses her guilt, saying she feels like a bad mother for staying with her abusive husband, forcing Toby to witness horrors no child should. Moved, Henry shares his own past, how someone he trusted deeply turned out evil. Many good people suffered due to that person, and he couldn't stop it. He gently tells Violet that her ex-husband didn't take her hope, because she's still standing, just like he is. Hearing Henry's kind words, Violet smiles and tells him he is a good man. She then says she forgot the limes and sends him to the bar. In that short moment, she spikes his drink with a heavy heart. Henry returns and lifts the tequila, but Violet can't go through with it. She spills wine on him, forcing him to set the glass down. As he leaves to clean up, Violet gets a text, saying that wasn't very smart. Moments later, Kara approaches, concerned by Violet's distress. She asks if Henry did something wrong, but Violet explains it's something else. Kara then reveals Richard has been watching her all night, even while on a date. Angry, Violet walks over to Richard with 2 tequila shots, one poisoned. She offers him a drink, but he suddenly calls her by name and refuses. Violet, shocked, says she never told him her name. Richard smirks, admits his cover is blown, and asks her to sit. He reveals he works for the mayor and was tasked to kill Henry, who's actually an FBI informant. The untraceable digidrop text made it easy to use Violet for the job. When she asks why, Richard says she's the perfect scapegoat since she's already a murderer. Violet protests she didn't kill her husband, but Richard doesn't believe her. A flashback shows Blake almost shot Toby but, hearing police sirens, he chose to kill himself instead. Richard then blames Violet's actions for causing Phil's death. Richard smugly tells Violet that he has footage of her spiking Henry's drink, proof that makes her powerless. The only way to save her son now, he insists, is by killing Henry. Just then, Henry returns. Thinking fast, Violet introduces him to Richard as an old friend and offers him a tequila shot, one Richard believes she poisoned. Henry drinks it, and Violet sends him back to their table, then demands Richard keep his promise and pull the intruder from her house. Confident the job is done, Richard orders the masked man to leave. Believing victory is his, Richard relaxes, happily digging into dessert as he keeps talking. But midway through his meal, Violet coldly reveals the truth. She poisoned his dessert, not Henry's drink. Raging, Richard pulls out a gun, only for Henry to jump in front of Violet, taking the bullet himself. Panic erupts in the restaurant, people screaming and running everywhere. Richard chases Violet, nearly shooting her, until Kara bravely steps in, forcing his shot into a glass wall instead. Enraged, he stabs the bartender and turns back to Violet. Gun in hand, Richard corners her, but Violet notices the cracked glass spreading behind him. He contacts and shouts for the masked man to return and kill Toby, then steps too close to the broken glass. Violet notices the hockey puck nearby and uses it to send Richard crashing through the glass, before he may shoot her. Violet grabs onto a tablecloth, dangling for her life. In the final moment, a wounded Henry gathers his strength, pulling Violet to safety and back into the restaurant. Violet checks her home cameras and sees the masked man heading straight for Toby's room. Panicked, she grabs Henry's car keys, tells him to call the cops, and bolts out of the restaurant. She speeds through traffic, desperate to make it home. Meanwhile, Jen regains consciousness and searches for Toby, only to find the intruder already inside his room. The man seizes Toby, but Jen fights back, stabbing him in the leg and dragging the boy to safety. They barricade themselves in a room, piling furniture against the door. But the intruder forces his way in, shooting Jen in the arm, then firing at the bed where Toby hides. Before he can finish the job, Violet bursts through the front door, catching his attention. He rushes downstairs. Violet arms herself with a kitchen knife, bracing for the fight. The masked man charges in, and though she stabs him, he overpowers her and slams her across the room. When he rips off his mask, Violet is horrified. It's the same man who posed as the electric company worker that morning. He's about to end her life when a remote-controlled toy car suddenly drives into the room, carrying a gun Toby had rigged. Violet seizes the chance, grabs the weapon, and fires, killing the intruder once and for all. Finally, the nightmare is over. Mother and son hug each other, crying in relief. The story then shifts forward. Henry is recovering in the hospital, while the news reports that the mayor's office was tied to the embezzlement scheme and the restaurant attack. Violet visits Henry, who thanks her for saving his life. Violet suddenly gets another drop, asking her to play again. As she accepts the drop, it turns out, it's Jen, who is also admitted in the same hospital. She teases her for bringing the food to Henry and leaves. The film closes with Violet and Henry smiling, making plans for their second date.